Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to try and walk you through what we did in class today in finding theme, using the materials that we did in class. So if this is rough, please just bear with me. So today in class, we had lots of practices in trying to identify theme. And just so you know, theme is probably one of the hardest things to figure out in literature because theme is never really told to us. We have to take a lot of what the writer says, we have to look at the clues, we have to piece things together, and from there we have to make some guesses about what the author is trying to tell us about life, about relationships, about the human condition and the human existence. So in getting started, let's take a look at this little excerpt. Directions say, read the short story and determine the theme or message in the story. Remember that a good answer will focus on big world lessons, not small world details of the story. And then it also says, underline important ideas or phrases. So here's our first story. Even though they were sisters, Susie and June were nothing alike. If Susie wanted to jump rope, June wanted to play hopscotch. If June wanted to watch soap operas, Susie wanted to watch talk shows. Tensions rose to the point that the girls could no longer stand one another's company. It seemed that they had nothing in common until the day that progress reports came out. While riding the bus home from school, the girls, startled by how upset the other looked, realized that they were both failing a subject. Susie was failing math and June was failing reading. Since both girls wanted to pass their classes, they got to talking and agreed to help one another. So every day after school for the next few weeks, Susie tutored June in reading, and then June tutored Susie in math. By the time report cards came and were distributed, Susie and June were passing all of their classes. The girls were delighted, but their mother was happiest of all, not just because her daughters passed their classes, but because they had learned to be good sisters. So the first thing I need to do is go back and take a look at some of the important ideas or phrases and underline them or circle them. So I'm going to take a look. Well, first of all, we have sisters. That seems kind of important. But what seems more important is that they are nothing alike. And we're given some evidence on this. So one likes to jump rope, one likes to play hopscotch. One wants to watch soap operas, the other one wants to watch talk shows. We see that there is tension in this relationship, that they just seem to don't get along, and that's what the word tension would suggest. And the fact that they can no longer stand one another's company, that they're just kind of done with each other as sisters. And then our author reinforces that they have nothing in common. But then we have this transition, this opposite, that would suggest something changes. And that is, progress reports come out. So they notice each other on the bus. And so I'm going to underline upset by how the other looked. And then they both realize that, in fact, they do have something in common, that they're both failing. Except because they're different. Susie's failing math and June's failing reading. They both want to pass classes. So there's something else that they have in common. So they're both failing some subject. They both want to pass their classes. So I'm getting the sense that we've got these two sisters that seem to think they're very, very different in many ways. But in reality, there are things that they have in common. So then we find out that they have agreed to help one another. So they are tutoring each other in their weak subject. So Susie's helping with reading and June is helping with math. And then we find that, lo and behold, after progress reports come out, they are passing all their classes. We also find that the mother was happy at the daughter's passing, and what mother wouldn't be. But it's not just because they passed the classes, but they really learned to be good sisters. So there are my kind of main points that I'm pulling out of this particular example. So then what I need to do is figure out, what is this really about? Is this really about overall, is it about being? Is it about chance? Or is it about humor? Is it about opposition? Is it about influence? So in looking at our big list of thematic topics, I'm going to start pulling out some ideas that this paragraph may be about. So then I can figure out from there what the theme is. So let's take a look. So for this, I've got some ideas. So it's about a family, so perhaps maybe this is about a family and family relationships, and that's what the author is trying to get across to us.
I found the word happy in there, so maybe it's about happiness. They're focusing on school, but they're both failing school. It's not about soccer, so it's about education. So maybe that's the big idea. Responsibility, maybe it's about responsibility because they have to pass their classes. And maybe it's about cooperation and teamwork. So I've got 5 ideas that I can potentially check and see if that's going to give me the best idea for my theme statement. So if I take a look at family and relationships, I'm going to go back to my paragraph and see if I can find examples or evidence that would lead me to believe that this is really about family and relationships. So I've got their sisters. I have that they are nothing alike. I also have that they're connected. They notice how each other looks. And that we've got their mom and they're being happy. So all of those things talk about the family and the relationships. But if I'm looking at this, and if I had to guess, I don't think this is really about family. That's not really the point about family doing anything to help another person, how family relationships can be destroyed and then repaired. It's really not talking about anything. These two people could be friends that are nothing alike, that have a falling out. It doesn't necessarily matter that they are sisters. It could be a sister and a brother. It could just be friends. And so I'm thinking maybe not family relationships. So I'm going to put a little minus next to this. So then I'm going to take a look at happiness. So I'm going to I'm scanning to see if there's anything about them being happy. Well, they're upset, so I don't know. If you're upset, you hope that you're going to be happy. And then it looks like they're delighted, which is a synonym for happy. And then we also see the word happy over here. But if I look at just these 3 short ideas, the whole paragraph really isn't about them being happy, or really the mother being happy as well. It's about the girls more working with each other. So I'm going to say that happiness is not probably going to be a good focus for this particular thematic statement. So let me take a look at education. And again, the first part's talking about how they don't like the same thing and they are not friends. The only thing I see here is that one of them is failing math and one of them is failing reading. And they both want to pass their classes, so they're tutoring each other. But in the end, they pass all their classes, so that's about education. But then if I have to take all these together and I think about what is the author trying to tell me about education, I'm kind of drawing a blank. I'm not really sure that this paragraph is actually telling me anything about education, other than if you're struggling, get help. But I don't think that's really the point of the paragraph either. I don't think that's really what I'm supposed to learn from this paragraph. So I think I'm going to have to take a pass on education as well. Responsibility. Well, there's responsibility in here. We take a look at their having to be responsible because they failed a subject. And so because they failed a subject, they are stepping up with their responsibility for the next few weeks and they're tutoring each other. So that would seem to suggest that they have some level of responsibility, that they can be trusted to tutor the other one in the area that they are struggling in. But again, like family and happiness and education, if I'm really looking at this, I don't know that this whole paragraph is setting me up to understand something about responsibility. There's nothing in here about what the girls have learned as a result of being responsible. There's nothing about how they take on the responsibility of something either. So I'm thinking probably responsibility isn't going to give me the best option either. So that leaves cooperation and teamwork. I wonder if the author is trying to tell me something about cooperation and teamwork. So let me take a look. The first part of this paragraph, it sets up until right about here, from the beginning to this part, that these sisters are not like each other, that they don't seem to cooperate. One wants to do one activity, the other one wants to do a different one. One wants to watch soap operas, one wants to watch talk shows, that their differences get in the way so much that they end up not being able to stand one another's company, which would suggest that they are not compromising on anything, that one of them watches soap operas in one room and maybe the other one watches talk shows in another room. One plays hopscotch in one area of the yard or the schoolyard, the other one jumps rope. But that whatever has happened between these sisters, they have decided that it is better to just leave each other alone rather than to collaborate, cooperate, or to somehow compromise so that they can get along. But then we have this transition until the day that progress reports came out. And that seems significant because before it seemed they had nothing in common, and now we have something that ties them together, that they're both failing a subject. So while up in the top, they could be on their own, it seems like that bus ride and what they learn, they are no longer alone. They are in this together. That they're each failing a different subject that coincidentally the other sister can tutor them in. And so then every day they tutor each other. And then when they get their report cards, they are passing all their classes. So we have a cause and effect situation. The girls are nothing alike. They don't want to have anything to do with each other. Then they come together when they realize that they are both failing classes. They tutor each other, and as a result of their cooperation, they end up passing their classes. They're happy, their mom is happy, and the family peace has been restored. So I'm thinking that the best thematic statement is going to come from me taking a look at cooperation and teamwork. So then I need to actually write my theme statement. So I have my paragraph, my theme of the story. In this short story, the author reveals that despite having differences, that should just say people can work together to learn from each other. And that really seems like what this story is trying to show us. We can be different, but we can also cooperate and be collaborative and work together in order to learn something from each other. And so what happens that leads me to believe this? Here is my explanation. The sisters start out disliking each other, not liking any of the same things. When they see the other upset by their grades, they realize they can help each other out. In the end, they are both successful because they work together and use their strength to help each other. So this is what you are going to do for the rest of the examples. You are going to read over the example. You are going to underline key pieces of information that seem to be important. You are going to take a look at your thematic ideas sheet and write down a couple of ideas that the paragraph might be about, some of those big conceptual ideas. You need to then go back and check through the paragraph just like I did. Try to find pieces of information from the text that support those topics and go through a process of elimination. After you have done that, select one concept that the paragraph seems to be really focused on and then try to craft a theme statement. From there, please write down why you believe that the story leads you to this conclusion. If you need an idea about writing a theme statement, a frame for writing a theme statement, please also check Google Classrooms and also the website. I will have it posted in both places. I hope this little recap helps you to better understand how to define theme. Good luck.